Welcome to Nourishing the Mother, an inspired conversation space between Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner on the journey of motherhood through the common thread of parenting, relationship, and sexuality as a path to consciousness.
We keep our conversations honest, our experiences real, and our philosophies exploratory. We believe that in order to raise incredible humans, we first have to raise ourselves. We know that in order to rock the family, you've got to nourish the mother. If you are here, you care about paving a path of conscious and intentional motherhood, connected with yourself and your gifts, and also illuminating your children in theirs so we may raise more whole humans who can impact this world in a more humane way.
If you desire to integrate your learnings practically and supportively, head on over to bridgetwood.life or julietenner.love to go deeper. And for all live-streamed pre-release podcasts and all our free content, head over to our free Facebook group, Nourishing the Mother with Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner. We are Julie Tenner and Bridget Wood, and we are so grateful you're here.
Hello and welcome to Nourishing the Mother. I'm Bridget Wood.
And I'm Julie Tenner. And today's podcast is when you're feeling stuck, stagnant, and stressed, what transition are you being asked to move through? So what we hope to preface this conversation with is that we are all continuously in rites of passage, cycles and phases of transition. In numerology, you might start at 1 being a beginning of a cycle, 9 being an ending of a cycle, and we are continuously on a spiral of energy, space, time, and transitions. And it's so lovely when we have a rest phase and we're feeling super high vibe and everything's flowing really well and we're just like, oh, I'm in the flow of life. We all love it, except none of us can stay there.
Oh, no, you can't stay there.
Can't stay there. But what will happen is and you feel free to, lead on with this, Bridgie, but what will happen is we'll often have that state of being on a pedestal. And so it often means that when we hit the bumps, the ends of a phase, when you pull the death card in tarot, when you're asked to be letting go of what no longer serves you, when the end of one era, phase of life, phase of being or belonging, one belief that's now has lived its life is dying, that we go through a period of what we might call death before rebirth, this kind of stripping away, where all of a sudden life stops feeling like it's in flow. We start feeling like we're swimming against the current and we're not manifesting the way that we normally would, and everything feels harder and our nervous system feels a bit more frayed and we can't quite understand why. So what we hope is that in this conversation you really remember and honor with deep reverence the respect that your rite of passage phase of transformation requires that you bring to it so that you move through it and expand exponentially on the other side.
I love the way you've said that. And as you're talking, I'm thinking, yeah, because we live in this kind of culture that says linear path, this is where you go. It's just this trajectory of this kind of line that gently inclines, when that's not how life rolls and that's not how growth goes either. And it is that resistance to those depths or to that unbecoming to become that creates so much suffering, because we can miss that feedback between kind of the holding on and the letting go, because life is a constant dance of holding on and letting go, and if we try to hold on for something too long, then we get all this feedback and this difficulty and stress. But if we let go too soon, we can also get that. Right? So it's just this dance. And I love the way you've spoken about that, because in various ways, you and I are both going through transitions, and no doubt listeners are working through their own as well, whether that's, where they're at in their motherhood, whether they're adjusting to 1 or 2 children or 2 to 3 children, or their relationships being renegotiated, or you've just finished your maternity leave and you're figuring out who you are now to go back in the workforce. Like, these are all rites of passage where you're asked to become someone you haven't been before.
Yeah, totally.
Which is terrifying.
Yeah. And actually feels really hard because it's this one phase of life where we have no certainty. We can't quite land with solid feet in who we've been, and we can't quite land with solid feet in who we are in this next step because it hasn't been made or formed or created. We're not solid in that way of being yet. And so this is what we've called in other podcasts shaky ground. This is when you're feeling like there's nothing stable underneath me. I might be, you know, swirling on different days, not knowing who I am, thinking, what am I doing? You know, we go through all of the existential human life questions again. Who am I? What is the purpose? What am I doing here? You know, I just think that's part of what happens when we're in this dark phase, trying to leave behind a cocoon in many ways. And we're branching out into this brave new world that we don't know, there's no guarantees. And not having guarantees for our human heart or our ego is terrifying. So we will cling on to old wounds of abandonment and rejection and shame and guilt. And it's almost like this way of revisiting all of these things that have happened before, and they're up again. Like it's this, in these phases of transition, it's almost like a renegotiation, right? It's like, you know, I actually explained this in one of the love bites, and I used this metaphor and it spoke really well to people. So if I use it here, I hope that even though it's not a visual media, that you will, it'll land for you. Though if it is visual, you can jump into our free Nourishing the Mother with Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner Facebook group, and you will get the live streams of video. So feel free to do that also if you're more of a visual learner. But I love the concept when we're looking at co-creating with the universe where, you know, I don't like the idea of levels, but let's say there's frequencies of energy that exist in bandwidths. And we're currently playing in the bandwidth or the energetic frequency with the same opportunities, with the same manifestations, meaning our reality is our frequency right now. Our beliefs that set our behaviors, that set our frequency, that set our reality. We're playing in that field. And all of a sudden, you know, we're cool there until at one point in time we start to feel not so comfy there and it gets a little bit itchy. And we're like, oh, actually, I want to be over there on that frequency and bandwidth. That one looks better. What's missing for me here is this. What's painful for me here is this. And I want that instead. And I want you to remember the universe does always have your back. The universe is always co-creating with you. But as we've heard in so many different spiritual concepts, it's not that you can't have it. It's the fact that you've got to become the person for whom that frequency is a reality, where those opportunities and that reality belong, right?
Yeah.
So we're sitting down on this platform or this step a bit lower down, and we look over there and we go, oh, I want to be up on that step. And it's like the universe goes, oh, no worries, babe. And then it points to that cap, that glass ceiling you've got on the frequency that you're on. It's like this big red finger going, pointing this. So every time there's pain and challenge and discomfort, it's like this arrow, this, babe, as soon as you clear this, you're up there on that
you're
step.
Up there.
And you're like, I just want to be there. Yeah, this. And back comes the pain. And then you're like, but I just want to be there. Yeah, this. So I want you to remember that you're always co-creating with the universe. And I have no doubt that if you are in a rite of passage or a phase of transformation, that you have wished for something. There's something that you want that isn't on the current step or frequency that you're on. There is nothing stopping you except the belief that's currently being highlighted. You don't have to go looking for your best next practice. Your life and the universe are literally pointing you towards it. But what we want to do is go, oh, no, I don't want that. I don't want to deal with that. I'll go do a yoga class 3 times a week and I'll find my purpose. As opposed to life is the spiritual playground and the universe is having a conversation with you right now. So I hope that lands for you, dear listener. But I just love the idea, even when I'm in it, and I'm just coming through one, so I get how painful it is. I love the idea of this is on the way to everything that I've asked for, not in the way of it. But what happens is it throws up what is left, what's residual, what's, you know, like the ball and chain, the weights. You're meant to be an air balloon that flies up and you're like weighted down by this stuff at the moment. So you've got to be with it.
And you're also what these, you know, stages throw up is all of your shadow, as well as all of the ways in which your ego wrestles with not wanting to be this person that struggles here. And, you know, you'll start to see behaviors that you don't like to see, because when you're in this like shiny, great, high vibe, you're like so conscious and you're like so respectful and you're like so in integrity and like you're all these things that you see as your light. But in stages of transition, you're often having to move through the sludge. You're having to meet yourself in ways that you've hidden yourself from as well.
Yeah, totally.
But in order to move up that, you know, to that new sphere of awareness and to shift into that frequency, you've also got to get practiced at bringing that piece of you with you and not kind of casting it aside and going, oh, I'm not taking that there. Because what happens is you go there and you meet that again. Because part of our evolution is to take to that next phase as many parts of ourselves as we can. Which means coming home to the stuff that we want to deny. Totally. Embracing where we hold guilt and shame and moving through that in a conscious way, rather than going, oh, I'll just perform and perform and perform and then not have to feel that. It doesn't work. Because you're just back there again.
Yeah, over and over, right?
Yeah.
So I'll preface this with, I'll give context to the fact that I just a few days ago had my 40th birthday. So 40, from what I have witnessed in practice, is a massive rite of passage.
Well, you've been watching this for a number of years. For as long as we've done the podcast, because you're a couple of years older than me, you've been watching women around you turn 40 and watching their family dynamics and watching their relationships and watching their career trajectories. So go on, because I am interested in what you have to say here.
Well, I just want to say, if you see yourself feeling like a midlife crisis, cliches are there for a reason, right? Like cliches
because there's some truth.
Yeah. Right. So midlife crisis is a thing, but I don't think it's the thing that pop culture thinks it is. I think that a midlife crisis is literally this renegotiation, and it seems to me to happen at 40 most potently. It's almost like this midlife, right? Okay, you've learned all your lessons, you've gained everything you need to now contribute to society and move on your merry way to be everything your soul was born into this life to be. So it's almost like you hit this midpoint and it's like, right, so we've got to reconcile. What are you taking forwards? What are you leaving behind? Like, who are we? How are we contributing? How are we showing up? It's this renegotiation of everything. But often what happens is that's when people make some pretty crazy decisions that aren't necessarily in alignment because they're being run by the feelings that come up, as opposed to being able to have a way to equilibrate the animal attachment side of us and see the higher mind that's behind it. So I have been watching this for a number of years, and for years and years and years I've been thinking, how do I want to celebrate 40? Like, how do I want to move through this rite of passage? Because I can see over and over and over how powerful it is. Like, it's really potent in the lives of women that I've worked with, incredibly potent. So about 2 years ago, so I was about 38, and I was like, I saw this, you know, that red finger pointing. I saw it pointing on my body image, which has time and time again come up for me, and being with my fatness and my roundness and my squishiness and all of the things that a cultural paradigm would say are not beautiful. And I could see myself hitting these edges and feeling shamey about my body. And I really sat with it and I was like, no, you cannot come across this threshold with me. Like, if this is me, like, you probably start a transition like that a couple of years out, it starts throwing stuff up. And I was like, no, not you. You're not coming through with me. You have to stay here. So, all right, red finger of the universe, I will work with you.
Yeah, if that's the case, then what working backwards, what needs to happen?
Right, exactly. So I really, that was consciously for the last 2 years, have totally pushed all of my edges on my nakedness and on dancing naked, and being witnessed and seen in my nakedness and my dancing. So dancing being when my body is moving and doing things that I'm not necessarily in control of, or I'm not, you know, tight and taut for. Like, really, I was really looking for my edges. So I've spent 2 years doing that. So it was probably about 6 months ago, I realized, probably even a year ago now, I did a strip dance for a room of women, like beautiful, heartfelt women who'd been on this journey with me. And that for me was almost like this culmination of like, I could do this without performance, without performing for a penis, without performing for culture, without trying to fit a narrative. I could do this thing for me and be witnessed, which is infinitely more powerful, in myself. And so that moment, like, it makes me, like, my heart feels so full when I think about that moment that it makes me want to cry. That I was just like, fuck, yeah, you're not coming through with me. We're done here, you know?
Yeah.
And so I remember back then burning the ashes and just saying, you know, with this gratitude, like, so full, thank you. But then I had for the last sort of 8-ish months been going, is that it? Like,
what else is here?
What are we going through?
Like, let me just scratch this. See what else is here.
I know. And it's so funny because then when the challenge started to arise, I stopped thinking about it as a rite of passage. It's like, as soon as it starts being more, it's almost like that you just regress a bit, don't you? And what happens is I think my co-creations or culminations have to, because I'm so good at just keep on going. I am that, you know, child with the trauma that just like, you just keep on trucking, you just keep on going and you ignore your body and you just keep on going until you do the right thing, right? Like, I'm in so many old paradigms. So often what happens is when I'm in a rite of passage, all of those old trauma wounds come up and I have to keep on going until my body stops. That's usually what happens. And then I crash and I go, oh, fuck, I'm here again. What is here? And then there's this huge healing. So over the years, I've gotten way, way, way better at seeing that earlier and going through a conscious process so I don't have to crash quite so hard. Bless you.
Thanks.
But that is essentially what happened at the last 4 months of last year was, and I didn't realize that was what was happening, was this descent into, because I thought I'm doing all the things I want to do, but I was smashing all of my edges, like all of them. I was essentially seeking my edges and standing on their pinnacle, you know, ledge of career, of relationship, of family, of parenting, like everything. I was standing right on the edge of it all. And then we moved through Christmas and I just entered this exhaustion in January, just January this year, that I could not find my way out of. Just such extreme lethargy that I felt disconnected from my body. And I was like, I don't even feel like me. Like, I literally don't even feel, like, I can't feel me. Like, I don't know what I feel like.
I remember saying that to you, like, at one point, though. I was like, I can't feel you. Like, I can't
feel me.
Yeah.
And now I can sit here and go, now that I can feel me again now, I can sit there and go, oh, shit, of course, you know, but when you're in the wood for the trees, like, you can't see it, you know. Yeah. And I'm thinking, oh, God, I'm not eating right. I'm not drinking enough. Maybe it's my adrenals again. Like, oh, my God. All of the things, right? All of the things. And then we enter February. And so my birthday's on the 12th of February. And I'm saying to you, God, everything is clunky. I cannot find my mojo. I cannot find my energy. I'm wiped by like 7 o'clock at night. I can hardly function. Like, I don't even know who I am right now. Like, what the fuck is this? And I certainly resource myself now. So I have an amazing, you know, I have an amazing energy practitioner and TCM. And like, I do all of the things to support my physical body. And yet they kind of weren't working. Which is when you go, probably not physical. And long story short, so my birthday is just on Saturday, all of these endings have happened. So I have prayed. I have sat in women's circle with you, Bridge. I'm sure you've heard me. And have prayed for the day when I would have, in inverted commas, Lola sorted.
Yeah.
And one of the mums said to me, for years, what does that mean? And I'm like, I don't know. Just not that she's like, in inverted commas, better, but that I feel solid and I know where we are and we have help and I know where we're going. Whereas I don't feel like I have that. And I realized we finally got her NDIS approved and we got her plan approved and I can see her future and it's like solid. And that just happened on the Monday. I was like, oh shit, that's an ending, right? Like that's a cycle.
Yeah.
And then I was sitting with the fact that work wasn't flowing in an energetic way, the way that it normally is. And I was asking spirit and I'm going, like, what is this? And what I had to sink into was the remembrance of, we want to think, I do, and you and I have sat and done this before, and you've pulled me up on it too, Bridgie, is because I have those childhood trauma patterns, I perceive that if something's not working, it's because I'm not doing it good enough, or I haven't seen something. And I remember even you pulling me up on it and saying, you cannot see everything. You're not God or goddess or divine. Like, I mean, you're of divine substance, but in a human form, you're not it.
Yeah.
You can't possibly see the intricacies of it all. So remembering that there's an intelligence that guides my body, that I don't have to think about my heart beating and I don't have to think about it healing a cut. There's a certain ease, even when it's feeling hard, that we can choose to fight, or we can choose to lean a little backwards into that current of and trust that there's a higher something leading us somewhere, and we can't see the future right now. And I had to remember that there's times in our life when all of a sudden, clients cancel and work pulls back, or, whatever your thing is, parties are canceled, I don't know. And you're like, oh, this is so painful. Why is this happening? And then next week your grandmother dies. And you're like, oh, thank goodness I have all this space.
Yeah.
Or something happens, you break a foot and you're like, oh, thank goodness I have all this space. Wow, the universe was really looking after me. Even though last week I thought it was killing me, turns out this week I can see the higher intelligence and it's really looking after me. And that just like in parenting, what we don't do is just as important as what we do. Same thing here. Right? Like what we're not getting is just as important as what we are getting.
Yeah. God, it's so good.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Because throughout like brains and our just human desires, we can just want for more and want to orchestrate it all and want to control and want to be like, the creator. But there's something that we can never touch, which is the divine intelligence, which is something much greater than us, which is that we are players in something much more profound than we can ever really fully feel into. Which is why, like, on so many levels, who are we to say that that's wrong or that's right? Because we don't know how that fits into the greater fabric of things.
Right. So Lola's stuff got sorted Monday, and then I just kind of started to do that lean back on Tuesday, like just started to lean back and go like, just a bit more trust, right? Like I have this pattern. And I could also see, this is where my pattern's coming up, because as you and our listeners all know, if you've been listening for a while, I come from a long line of poverty, and scarcity. And so financial empowerment and abundance has continued, and I imagine will continue, because the pain is so big, to be a lesson that I continuously scratch away at and evolve, and I hope create a new relationship with, so that my children have more freedom than I perceived that I had. And I could notice all my scarcity stories coming up. And I could feel it in my heart. Like if I really sunk, rather than avoiding it, if I really sunk into it, I could feel its grip, like as if it's like death's grip on my heart, like the base of like fingernails in the base of my heart. And I could trace that feeling back to like these spontaneous moments in my childhood. And I'm like, this isn't even now, right? Like, this is when I started to go, oh, I'm being called into old shit here. I've got to lean back some more here, because this grip, I put an affirmation on my phone. I let go of the grip that scarcity has on my heart. And my sister was organizing my 40th, and my nervous system was strung out for that whole week. It was bringing up all my childhood wounds and patterns with my sister. I did my very best not to project those onto her. So if by some, thing she ever listens, I hope I did okay. But I did my very best to see it going, oh, I can see my control pattern. I can see my parenting and henpecking of her. I didn't move them into action, but I could feel them in my body and see them.
And you could not kind of like, you saw them and you were like circuit breaking them. You're kind of going, oh, I'm about to do this right now. Yeah.
To the point where I would even rein people in. I was like to my husband, okay, I can't taste it, but you could. Can you just take the thing, you know, and we'll do it that way. And he's like a co-conspirator. And so he goes, oh, for God's sake, okay. So he takes me and he comes back, do you want this answer? And I'm like, no, I don't. No, I don't. Don't tell me. I don't want it. You know, like it was just a horrendous week in my nervous system of every scarcity, FOMO, fear coming up that I totally recognized had existed for the entirety of my childhood and that my sister so expertly hits for me. Right, like even none of this is by accident, that my sister's never organised a birthday for me or anything ever, and here she is organising my 40th extravaganza. Like even that is not random, right?
Yeah, because I mean, how perfect that you needed her to play this role for you as you try to make this transition.
Right.
Like how much is turning 40 leaving that narrative behind?
Right. I fucking hope I do.
Yeah, I mean, you probably won't leave it all behind, but no, let's say you make let's say you make a sizable leap, right?
Let's go with that. Let's go with that. So all week I've felt this, you know, tension on my chest and vice grip on my heart. And I'm like, oh God, fuck. And here we go again. I feel like I felt like I've spent all week in labor. You know that feeling of when you're like, oh God, and then it goes away again. And then it's like, oh God, it's back again. And then it goes away again. It's felt like that all week.
Yeah.
So then it got to about Friday and I could regulate, but I could still feel those feelings. And I just had a moment with myself and I said, okay, all right, what if this is not about letting more go? Hang on, I just lost my train of thought then. Let me see if I can bring it back. Oh my God.
What if this is not about letting something go? What if it's about...
Come on, come back to me. You talk for a minute, Bridgie, and I'll see if I can work out what just happened in my head.
Well, I mean, this is just, it's so powerful to talk through this because we can see other people's patterns so expertly often, but to really have this lens of like looking at your own things that come up and actually see how they impact you physiologically is so powerful because as you say, you can do all the physical things, but if you are spiritually walking yourself through something and you're continually resisting it, then there's kind of nothing that you can do on a physical level until you walk through it spiritually.
Yeah, I totally think that. And I cannot for the life of me remember what I was about to say. So I have to trust that Spirit's also doing that. So if I think of it, I will put it on our socials. Oh, I wish I could remember it.
So there was the relationship with the sister, there was the Lola stuff. There's the endings, right? There's the endings.
There's all these endings happening as I come towards 40. No, I can't even think of it. Maybe it'll come back later. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
This podcast is brought to you by the Transition Support Bundle, which is a beautiful offering for other mothers who are also walking transitions like kinder and school with their kids. It is a 30-page guide, which is full of practical tools, tips, tricks, ways of being to help support yourself and your child, and then further supported by 2 months in the Reimagining Motherhood community to actually ground these practices for you in your being and your way of life. We then wrap that up with a beautiful Sacred Women's Circle all about honouring your own transition so that you can feel really ready to claim who you are in this next phase of life with your little one. Find out more about that at bridgetwood.life, and it's just $88. What have you got coming up, Jules?
Well, you have about 2 more days. Doors close on the 17th of February for Queen School. So that's 5 weeks with me of learning how to be loved better by becoming a better, meaning wiser and more magnetic lover. You can find out more at julietenner.love for Queen School. Oh, no, I do remember. So what if it's not about letting go, but it's about who do I want to be when I walk through this door?
Yeah.
So what if I need to stop focusing on what I'm not
Mm.
and what I'm, perceiving that I'm still holding on to? And instead do that beautiful inner child practice of I see you, I love you, I'm grateful for you, but I leave you here. Because when I opened that door and I step through this threshold, here's who I want to be. Here's who I am. And what if I met my birthday party that way? Because I was like thinking in my head, I kept saying to Nick, my birthday party probably won't happen because we'll get COVID and then we'll cancel it. It probably won't happen because we'll get COVID and it'll get cancelled. He was like, stop manifesting that. And I was like, I know. Why am I doing that? Like, even I've not really ever had a birthday party before. So I could see there was, again, this scarcity thing of not being celebrated. And I wasn't celebrating myself. I could see that as another pattern coming through in my scarcity. And it's so important, the celebration as part of the law of manifestation and abundance. And yet I had significantly stopped that as a self-practice. So I could see all these beautiful signposts. And I just thought, okay, what if I said yes to this birthday party, but I entered it with the grace of, you get to walk into this the way that you wish to walk your 40s. And that was a game changer for me. That like flicked a switch in my head. And I was like, I'm going to walk as the woman in her 40s. And I'm going to feel as the woman in her 40s. Like, this is my decade. Like, be her now. And this calm that came over my body was just extraordinary. I could still see those scarcity patterns, but I could see them for what they were not, which was truth. They were not truth, right? Like,
so you could observe them instead of, like, you could be the observer rather than.
You were just like a piece of chiffon. I could see you, but you weren't of me anymore. You know, it was like this veil. So our Saturday, my birthday Saturday, it's normal, pretty crazy life. So I still got up, still had running with my elder two, which I just adore. Gwen still has gymnastics. Nick still takes Zeke to puppy training, we still had a normal day. But I just felt so heartful. Like, every step I was taking, I was thinking, I'm so grateful. I'm just grateful.
So
and I walked into this space that my sister had set up in my backyard, which I will do a post on the socials just to show you, because it was like a wedding. It was just so beautiful. It was so beautiful. And I had this epiphany moment, because all my life I've minimized my own sense of creativity, because her creativity is so external, it's so visual, it's so easy and tangible to see and love and adore and feel something about. And, she's always been held in our family on a pedestal, and friends, for how incredibly talented she is, which she is, and incredibly, just, she can turn her hand to any medium and it's like freaking next level.
Yeah, she's a master.
Oh, my freaking God. And so our whole life, this has been heralded, and I can see how I had minimized myself. So reclaiming my own creativity and sense of art is why I use art so much in my language, because the reclamation of my own art and the reclamation of my own creativity was a huge part in healing my feminine journey because of the right. So none of this is random.
Yeah, I see that.
So here's my sister, who has, through the whole week, just by virtue of doing this beautiful love gift for me, love gifted me all of my pain points that I've held with her for a lifetime.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Like, how fucking beautiful.
Yeah.
And it culminates in this literal living piece of art that she creates for me to walk through. Like, so. And I just had this epiphany where I was like, holy shit. By virtue of being sisters, we're two halves of a universe, right? Because every relationship is a universe. And her art is so exquisite and it's so external and seen. And yet my art has always been as exquisite, but it's internal. I've always had the art and the art making and the paintbrush strokes and the creation of worlds internally. That's why I do love relationship and sexuality, right? And hers is external and mine is internal, but the two arts are extraordinary. And I literally hit me like this epiphany of, cotton fairy floss.
But like, as you're talking, I'm thinking, yeah, like, because she's gifting you her art for you to walk through and claim your own. But you had to be at the point where you could receive that from her to be able to see yourself.
True. Yeah. As if you could make me cry anymore.
God.
So it was just like, you were there, obviously, Bridget, but for our listeners, I can't even explain to you how beautiful it was. Like, it was the perfect day. It was
like breathtaking.
It was. And it was like, it was warm and it was it was in my backyard, so it's overshadowed by my beautiful grandmother tree, my beautiful elm that had things hanging from it. And, I didn't think that anyone would really stay. I had this kind of drop-in afternoon, and because I know how crazy Saturdays are with sport and kids and all the things and COVID, and like, I had no expectations at all. Maybe that's key too. I had no expectations other than I was going to be here as I was going to walk through my 40s. And the fucking love bomb, like, I was holding tears every time I hugged someone, just that feeling of like, fuck, I have missed you for 2 years.
Yeah.
And here you are, and it's so magnificent to feel you. And we had, like, how many kids were there, Bridget? So many fucking kids.
Yeah.
And yet you hardly noticed them because there was just these spaces for people to be and activities for kids. It felt like an adult wonderland, even though we were all there with our kids. So it's like all my top foods. It was all my favourite things. It was all my favourite food. And henna artists and flower crown making. It was like all my favourite things, all under the shade of this beautiful grandmother tree who has witnessed my life and transitions and evolutions for 15 years now. It was just, and I just was so full. And everyone had said to me, I'm just coming, I'll fly in for, 20 minutes, have a drink, and then I've got to go to the basketball game, whatever. I'm like, yeah, of course, no worries. No one bloody left. Just, this party just kept getting bigger and bigger. I look at these videos that some of my friends have sent me today, and I'm like, oh my God, this is like so epically beautiful. All of these people, just this heartfelt, surrendered state that I don't even know. The vibe that was there was just so freaking beautiful. And we crashed out that night. I think everyone left about, 10 o'clock or something was the last person. We were crashed out by 11. And for the whole of the next day, we were actually supposed to podcast yesterday. And I text you saying, I can't even string a word together.
I did think it was ambitious. But
in my head, I'm like, we're just going to be celebrating a party. And yet that's not what happened in my body. What happened in my body was I really did walk this, and then the whole next, like, I'm just slowly moving around this space, packing up and tidying, pulling all these things away, and I'm spontaneously dropping to my knees in tears, like just these heartfelt wellings that just seemed to come out of nowhere and just take me over. I'm so fucking grateful for this life.
Yeah.
Like, I would walk past something and say, I'm so grateful for this life, like just brought to my knees, grateful. Like, it was just fucking magic. You can't bottle that shit, right? Like, I fucking live for those moments.
Yeah.
And that was like all day yesterday. It was just like profound. And so now I'm sort of looking retrospectively back at all, and I can see in hindsight, with the gift of hindsight, all of these transitions. But when you're in them, you don't realize you're in them. So I really just wanted to have this opportunity just to share with our lovers, yes, with our listeners, who hopefully are our lovers, what my experience was, but also just to remind you that when it feels out of flow, you're still in flow. You just probably have to lean back a little and be taken by the current a little more. Can't always take yourself everywhere,
Yeah. which can be so, like, I mean, sometimes it's the biggest courageous act, isn't it, to let yourself be taken by current?
Because you're asking yourself to have faith. Do you have a faith practice that allows you to do that? Is there someone or something that holds you beyond you?
Yeah. Because those are the things that help you practice that faith, right? Like if you can't, yeah, like I think I've said to you before we started recording, like this thing that I've been playing with lately and over the last week was like, you don't really rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems and your structure and your conditioning. So what do they look like? Because it's for you, as you've talked about, it's been the structures that you have for yourself on taking yourself to your edges that, yes, even though you smashed yourself at them, it allowed you to walk through this in a conscious way. It allowed you to make choices of what you want to take and what you want to leave behind.
Right.
And see your patterns.
Yes. Yes. And that is what I want for all of us when we're moving through a rite of passage, through a phase of transition, through the ending of one cycle before the beginning of another, is just to have a level of grace that we carry with ourselves and in our own heart for the hardness of that journey too.
Yeah.
Because the lean back requires deep self-compassion and grace, right?
Yeah. And a real in a kind of fight sometimes between your brain that does not want to surrender to the unknown and that wants to know everything, and your higher mind and your spirit that kind of says this is the way.
Totally. Yeah, totally. So it was magnificent. And then I sat there on Sunday on my own. I was with Gwen, actually. She was here too. Just taking the time to open each present and card that someone had brought me. More tears. Like it was just, it was exquisite. Just not because I'd planned it, not because I'd controlled it.
You could be in the process and in the unfolding of it.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to share about transitions? Because we started it with when you're feeling stuck, stagnant and stressed, what transitions are you being asked to move through?
Yeah, I mean, the transition that I'm living a lot at the moment is my daughter starting school and having to confront all the fears I had or all the things I made it mean and go, oh, fuck, that was so much of a story that I just made up. Or, like that this child who I thought was going to hate the structure or really struggle or be really resistant to the system of school actually seems to love it. And it's really interesting to in following her now, I'm like coming home to more parts of myself who loved it too as a child, right? But that who, because I really wanted to honor her, thought for a while that I wanted to unschool her, I wanted to homeschool because I didn't know how she was going to fit into a system. There's a really loud banging sound going on outside my door that I'm finding.
Oh no, I don't really notice it on the recording.
Okay, so good. Wait, this is what it's like when we're recording. Sometimes there is like chaos around.
Yeah. So humbling.
Yeah,
isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And it's really interesting. And also to walk, starting school with a child who seems to love it. And in fact, the number of times she said to my son, she's like, Hugo, he hates school, but I love it. And so just to be the parent of such diverse opinions and experiences and hold them both as true for that child too.
Yeah.
And to work my own edges and my beliefs and my capacity to hold both of those experiences for them, which may well be right for them.
Yeah.
right? Like there's the kids who hate school and just endure it, and then there's the kids who love it and just live for it, and that's true for them.
Yeah.
And to see both of those experiences as perfect and as something that I can allow to be real for them without having to change them. And so the holding that asks for me, and even the pushing edges and coming up against imprints, and this morning my daughter couldn't get ready in time, and so it's okay, so we're going to slow down to what her nervous system can handle, so we can walk through this door of school for you today, so that you're connected to yourself, right? Which means sometimes we're going to be late, or it's not going to be the way it looks like it should look. But if my priority is this child being connected to themselves, and that's what happens, and staying true to that, it's kind of what I've been walking myself through the last couple of weeks.
It's pretty epic.
Yeah, it's like so much freedom in it, actually. But just, again, I can catch myself and go, oh, God, right, not what I was expecting, but okay.
Is the feeling of it, though, what you were always manifesting and visioning? I forget the form.
Yeah.
Feeling what you thought it would be?
Yeah, the feeling is, because
right.
Yeah. And I think I've always followed her. I've followed her and her interests and what lights her up. And this seems to be what's lighting her up now. And so I just want to fan the flames of that. And so if that means that I adjust my lens, then so be it. So I'm enjoying it. But yeah, it's a bit of a reality check sometimes for the life that you thought a particular child might want or lead you to, when in fact they're loving all the things that you thought weren't for them, the system and stuff. Yeah.
It's so ironic, isn't it?
Yeah.
I just think for all of us, though, we're called into that at some point or many points, right?
Totally. And so I think I'm still figuring it out. It's still kind of like distilling down for me right now.
Yeah.
And I think also, starting school off the back of 2 very wild years, it's also that time of starting school where you want one foot in the system, but also want one foot out of it, so you can handle being out of it as well.
Yeah.
So I can see how it's a strategy that I've employed too. But yeah, just to feeling like we're landing here, and it feels like home for her. I'm finding myself in that too. So yeah.
It's really beautiful.
Thanks. Yeah. So I've been rewriting the transitions toolkit that you and I wrote together about 4 years ago, and I'm like, wow, so much of what I've done in the past is just so ingrained. It's like, oh yeah, that's what we've done. And so part of that is also what's helped her through
transitions
too. Yeah, because of what's innate. But it's just a helpful process to go back through and go, oh yeah, there's that and there's this, and of course, yeah, if she can't choose her clothes, she can't tell me what she wants to wear, and she can't put her socks on, then she's struggling, she's overwhelmed. So let's work back, right? Instead of our imprint saying, quick, hurry up, and not actually slowing down enough for the child. So yeah, been really enjoying that process of re-meeting transitions in this way, and allowing them to feel good and to love them when it's smooth sailing, but also don't resist the times when the wheels might fall off, because they may come. I'm prepared for that. Yeah.
I just love it so much. So is there an end date when we can get our hands on the transition toolkit?
It's now. So it's now. Yeah. So I put together a transitions toolkit bundle. So with that you get the 30-page guide, you get 2 weeks membership in Reimagining Motherhood, and as part of that you also get a circle, which is all about honouring your transitions, because the guide is made more potent by being in a community of women who are well versed in the practices, the perspectives, the theory, the reality of so much of what the content explores. And so it'll help you make it part of your way of being, to be in a community of women practicing that, and then of course bringing your own unique transition that you're working through to the women's circle. So Yes, this is available till the 1st of March. So do hop in. It's $88. So it's really just, you know, super reasonable opportunity to get this guide and this wisdom and this beautiful community of women.
I can't help but sink into, that's what that sigh was just that hammock of support you and I would have just craved when we were back feeling as though we didn't have those answers.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind
like me, baby wanted to going through a transition to school, and I would have loved something like that.
Me too. And so it feels so beautiful to be creating it.
Because we don't have to do it alone. No, not at all. And I think the more we surround ourselves with what we really desire, the more it becomes possible for us. Right? Totally. 100%. And a community of women, I just think, man, what can't you do?
Yeah. So what about you, Jules? What have you got going on?
Well, you've got about 2 more days to get into Queen School if you're joining me in this round. So the doors close on Thursday, the 17th of September. So it is 5 weeks in a live container with me, all about reclaiming and removing the blocks to your feminine or your femme energy, and sinking into, how do I understand the masc beings that I'm in relationship with? How do I communicate in a way that is deeply magnetic and has all of my desires getting met in a way that feels really delicious for both of us? So it's 5 weeks where we do that together, because you don't have to do it alone. Turns out everyone's going through the same experience as you, and together we all rise and get better. So you can find out more about Queen School at julietanner.love.
Beautiful. Connect with me at bridgetwood.life, and to get to us, it's nourishingthemother.com.au. Remember to nourish the woman to rock the family.
And we'll see you next week when we continue to peel back the layers on your mothering journey.
Thank you so much for listening. We literally couldn't do this without you. Please share this podcast with anyone you think it would be medicine for.
If you desire to integrate your learnings practically and supportively into your life, then head on over to bridgetwood.life or julietanner.love to go deeper.
And if you feel like giving back a little to this free content, please rate us on iTunes or Facebook, all of which helps the podcast reach more mamas who need this type of tonic for the soul.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/TheWellnessCouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives.
Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.